Welcome to the Anxious Love Coach podcast, a place for creating meaningful, conscious, secure, long-term partnerships. Here, we talk relationship anxiety and creating healthy, magnetic dynamics within partnership to help you feel confident and alive within committed partnership. My name is Natalie Kennedy, and I'm your host. I'm a relationship anxiety coach and meditation teacher. I've worked with hundreds of clients battling anxiety, and after experiencing extraordinary shifts in my own healing relative to partnership, now combine my lived personal experience and professional training to help others trust themselves within relationship and in their lives. I've been to the edge and back with my now husband from relationship anxiety and come out confidently to the other side. I want to pass the tools I've learned along to you to help you trust yourself in relationships and also create magnetic, hot dynamics with your partner. I believe lots of mainstream relationship advice today can make us anxious and dissatisfied. So let's jump in and normalize challenges that modern relationships and real people go through while also giving you tools to trust yourself, drop the shame, and alchemize your messy, twisted relational truths into profound inner wisdom and aliveness. If you haven't yet, be sure to join my communities over on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Anxious Love Coach. You can also request a 30-minute relationship anxiety assessment with me depending on availability, or ask me a question over on my website at www.anxiouslovecoach.com. I've also got a wonderful relationship anxiety meditation available to you as thanks for subscribing to my email list. Thanks for being here and enjoy this episode. Hello, welcome back. It's nice to be here. Today, I'd love to share what you can do and some shifts you can make both in your mindset and in your behavior if you find that you always have breakup urges right before your period. Do you find that your relationship doubts and your nitpicking and your criticizing get worse in your luteal phase? I used to find this to be the case, and I have had a few clients with severe PMS or even PMDD, which I forget which it stands for, but you can Google that. I have had clients who have found that their relationship anxiety and breakup urges get intolerable right before their period. A lot of them feel shame and think that there's something wrong with them. And what they end up doing is trying to fight the urges, and then inevitably they come out much stronger, resulting in a lot of chaos and pain and unnecessary turmoil that results in them having to do a lot of repair after their menstrual phase is over. So rather than giving you an episode about why you shouldn't blow up at your partner every month, I'm going to give you a whole new way to maybe look at your cycle and examine what messages your body is trying to tell you. And I say this as someone who has had a 2 decades long difficult relationship with her menstrual cycle. A few years ago, I actually got diagnosed with a very light form of endometriosis, but it explained why my periods had been so debilitatingly painful. And it also explained why I felt so much chaos right before my period would start. And like you, I also found myself picking a lot of fights. Now, my journey with trying to not take out all my rage and chaotic emotions out on my partner right before my period did not really stem so much from just wanting to stop, but more so I became obsessed with my period maybe a decade ago because of debilitating period pain. And I didn't see the connection at the time between how I was treating and relating to my female body. Dare I say that any relational issues I had during my luteal phase were not the issue. They were actually the symptom of the issue. So I just want to reassure you that if you have PMDD or you find yourself having lots of breakup urges right before your period, I would love to present with you the relieving possibility and perspective that there might be nothing wrong with you and that this is not a problem. This is a symptom of the problem. And the problem is being disconnected from your cycle and your cyclical nature as a woman. So this episode is for women who are not super well versed on how their cycles are connected to how they feel week after week. And I'm going to give you some tips based on some science and also some spirituality. And also, if you are a man in a relationship with a woman, this will probably be very validating for you, and it'll help you not take things so personally and help you create a safe environment for your woman when she is about to bleed. As I said, my take is that there is nothing wrong with you and there is everything right with you. You just need to give yourself permission to go into the state of withdrawal that the luteal and menstrual phases call of women. And again, this is also for men wanting to understand more and have an easier time kind of anticipating where your woman is and be able to have an idea of where she might be in her cycle based on how she's acting. And based on what you observe, you might be able to respond in a different way each time of the month. For those of you men who are worried about being bored in a marriage or in a relationship, just know that you get 4 different women every month. Just like on Earth, you get 4 different seasons. And actually, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the seasons of the Earth and the seasons of the menstrual cycle because there are 4. So let's go through the different phases. And what I'd like to describe to you, I first heard the very first time in a book called Woman Code by Alisa Vitti. I initially purchased this book because I was looking to get rid of period pain. But what I discovered was something much wilder and much wider than simple pills or herbs I can take during my period to make them easier. I discovered a whole new way of looking at my femininity, and it launched a decade-long journey on understanding what my body was made to do. And it's really, really amazing if you decide to take it seriously. I also would love to recommend another book called Ritu Vidya, Ancient Science Behind Menstrual Practices by Sinu Joseph. And I'm going to recommend this book and talk about it a little bit later. It's a book I read about 6 months ago and it blew my mind. Oh my gosh. So much incredible wisdom that we kind of already intuitively knew in our bodies, but can be shown through scientific studies. But also it just confirms what we maybe knew spiritually all along. By the way, if you ever hear me sharing books and you're interested in them, I actually have like an Amazon book list, Natalie's Readings, and I'll include it in the show notes. You can do that, and I actually get a really tiny commission, but still, the most important thing is that if a book resonates with you, I highly recommend reading it. I'm a big bookworm. I get through a lot. Let's go through the different cycles. So as women, we have 4 different phases of our menstrual cycle. And just like the Earth, which has 4 seasons, these seasons can actually be spiritually connected. We can actually consider each phase of the cycle as a metaphor for the Earth's season. So you are born and die every single cycle. Also, many people call menstrual cycles their moon cycles or their moon phases. And we could also say that there are 4 cycles to the moon. And the moon phase, just like our menstrual cycle, menstrual, moon, the roots are similar, also 28 days. So there used to be a time in history where women were a lot more aware of the phases of the moon and were a lot more attuned to the shifts in the Earth's seasons. And just like they were attuned to these things for the sake of growing crops and making sure that they got a good harvest, women were also delicately attuned to their bodies for the purpose of childbirth and reproduction. Now, thanks to birth control, which I think is a blessing and a curse, women don't have to be aware of these cycles, but these blessings turn into these blessings of death and rebirth, which were programmed into the female psyche and into her hormones and her biology. This gets shut off. And that beautiful impulse of death and rebirth, it doesn't just disappear when you take birth control. It just shows up in other ways. And so it can result in depression and anxiety and all of these things. I say this as someone who used to be on birth control for a few years. My main purpose was to not get pregnant, which is probably the main reason a lot of women take it. Others might take it to reduce menstrual cramps. That was another reason of mine. But really, when I took it, I didn't my mom tried to warn me and say, listen, there's no, there's no free lunch. There are consequences to these things. And I didn't listen. I didn't understand. And so I just want a lot of women to know that birth control can be a godsend, but it's not free. And there are side effects and there are brutal consequences to completely shutting down your menstrual cycle and the thing that makes you a woman, and the beautiful, I guess, side effects that come with being a woman that you can tap into and utilize for incredible creation, not just a baby, but art, business, anything that you want to create. You can harness the extraordinary power of the menstrual cycle if you tap into it. So without further ado, let's do a brief overview of the cycles and the different phases in each menstrual phase. Let us start with spring. And the springtime phase in the menstrual cycle is the follicular phase. I'm not going to talk about the different hormones that rise and fall because I think you can look that stuff up. And also for me, sometimes I forget and say something wrong and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to keep it pretty bare bones here that a 5-year-old can understand, okay? When I think of springtime, I think of planting seeds and setting intentions and thinking about what it is you would like to cultivate this cycle. If you were planting a seed in springtime, you would be doing so with an intention. You know, you're not just planting any random seed. You're planting a seed of an apple tree, or you're planting a seed of a cactus, or you're planting a seed of a tomato. And you do that with the vision of, let's say, a tomato plant in mind that you plan to harvest in, let's say, autumn. Okay. So you plant a seed with a goal in mind. And in our menstrual cycle, this corresponds to the follicular phase. When I think of follicle, I think of seed, planting a seed. And this is exactly what happens. You have your follicles start to swell, and one of them sticks out and ends up going ploop, preparing for ovulation, preparing to have a baby. Whether or not you have a baby is irrelevant. You can still harness the power of this beautiful energetic release that happens. So when I think of spring, I think of newness, I think of intentions, I think of goal setting. You're going to be most primed and open to trying new things. And this is a time to get frisky and try new things in the bedroom that you haven't done before. This is a time to make a vision board and start new projects. And since you're just coming out of menstruation, you're probably going to start to want to open up a little bit more. You're going to naturally want to initiate things. So obviously, just as a disclaimer, every single phase in this cycle is just a general. If you're going through a major breakup or you just lost your job or a major trauma, this is going to throw everything off. So I'm just making a generalization here. Take what works, discard what doesn't. So that is your inner springtime. It's your follicular phase. It lasts anywhere from, 3 to, I would say 7 to 10 days, roughly. I'm going to start the menstrual phase at day 1, but I'm also going to talk about the menstrual phase at the end. So your follicular phase is probably going to start around day 5, and it's going to go until maybe around day 12. So you have about a week. The next season is going to be, after spring, of course, summer. And summer is about blooming and blossoming. And if you look into nature, you'll see a lot of flowers that are, just begging to be pollinated, and seeds are spreading and juices are mixing and bees and birds are just eating and pooping and spreading seeds everywhere. And there's a lot of mingling happening. And so for this reason, we correspond summer to the ovulation phase, which is when your body wants you to get pregnant. For this reason, I think of summer as mingling time. This is when you're going to feel most social. It's also when you're going to be giving off a lot of pheromones. So this is probably when you'll be most radiant and sexually voluptuous. This is when your partner might feel more drawn to you naturally without you having to do anything at all. Just existing is a sexy experience for you. And this is a time, this is the peak of your cycle. This is when you're going to feel hottest and most fun and most alive. And this is when your goals that you set during the The follicular phase is when they are going to begin to come to fruition. So this is when your projects are going to start picking up some speed. It's when you're going to be most involved. Alisa Vitti in her book Woman Code said this is a great time to plan sales presentations and do sales calls because it's when you're going to feel most confident, most social, most open to other people, most collaborative. This is a time to do collaborations because you're in mingling mode. You're magnetic towards other people. And this is when your body wants you to make a baby. You can harness the wonderful power of the ovulation phase to get shit done in your life that requires a social component. And ideally, this is the fuel that allows you to get your goals into fruition. Now, ovulation does not last that long. It peaks once you ovulate, all your hormones change and you feel a big drop. So if you ever just felt on top of the world during ovulation and then you wake up the next morning and you've got a new zit on your face and you feel a little bloated and all of a sudden you're kind of depressed, you have now entered the luteal phase. And this is when the PMS symptoms start kicking in. So the luteal phase is a bit longer. I would say the ovulation phase lasts about 5 days. You've got 5 days where you can get pregnant. There's a lot of ways, by the way, to kind of test that you are fertile. I am not going to get into that in this podcast, but there's a great book called Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Tony. I forget. It's also on my Amazon list. And I love that book so much. Whether or not you take birth control or not, whether or not you decide to follow her techniques or not, it's just a really great resource to understand how to guesstimate when you are fertile. But once that phase is over, you will feel a drop in your energy. And this is when you might start to feel a little cranky. And, you're moving from the yang, the peak of your cycle, and you're dropping down and moving into your luteal phase. And most women hate this because they wish that they felt the way they feel during ovulation all the time. But then it wouldn't be a cyclical thing, would it? You would be a more consistent being. And that would be a more yang or masculine thing. There's more of a lower level of consistency day in, day out. But women, we are cyclical. And I think this is awesome because I think it means that rest is programmed into our biology and we thrive when we choose it, which is what we want anyway. So it's almost like intuitively we want to be given permission to rest and our bodies are like, here, I have programmed the desire for rest into your biology. And then we get mad when our bodies ask for rest and we find it inconvenient. So let's talk about the blessings of the luteal phase because so many people and women find it to be a curse. And I do not. I actually love the luteal phase now. It's one of my favorites because yes, I'm moody. Yes, I'm cranky, but life just feels really real during that time. I feel like book critic. It makes me want to dress up in really moody clothes and just be a dark Van Gogh, Beethoven type character. I really enjoy this now that I've just embraced this archetype. And if you think about the seasons, the luteal phase is autumn. And autumn is about tying up loose ends, preparing for winter time and harvest. And the beautiful thing about the luteal phase is whatever plans or intentions you set during your follicular phase, hopefully by now you're finishing up your projects and things are coming to fruition and you are in a harvest stage. A lot of women can take that radical energy that they feel, the anger and the frustration and the intensity, and you can use that to prepare the space around you as if you were preparing to die, which is what the menstrual phase is about, by the way. The follicular phase is about new life, and the menstrual phase is about dying. Every month you have a life, death, life, rebirth cycle. So in your autumn phase, use all of that energy that you get from anger or moodiness and use it to prepare your space for the menstrual phase. You can also use it to process any emotions that you just didn't have time to feel during the first half of your cycle. This is also a time when you're going to naturally start to withdraw from the world. So during your follicular and ovulation phases, it's like a flower opening up towards the sun, trying to take up as much nutrition from the external world, mingling with people, and the sun eventually goes down. And so the buds will close to protect herself and keep herself warm. Well, this is exactly what happens in your cycle. So your energy should now start to be withdrawn and become a bit more conservative with your energy, because you're going to be losing a lot during your menstrual phase. So this is why harvesting your energy is important, harvesting the fruits of your labor, processing any emotions that have come up that you haven't had time to process. Notice how you feel about how the cycle went. A lot of times, if I treated my body like crap for the first half of the cycle, my body's going to let me know in the second half, hey, I didn't like how that felt. Next cycle, I want you to do something different. Here's how it feels when you treat me this way, right? So this is how my body communicates to me. So if you're having a crappy luteal phase, examine how you've set up the first half of your cycle. Was it an enriching first half? Do you feel proud of how the first half went? Do you feel accomplished? What are the fruits of your labor that you are reaping? You reap what you sow, right? So make sure that that first half of that cycle, you're following a plan, you're setting an intention. Otherwise, your second half of the cycle is going to feel like crap. So our bodies are these wonderful forcers of personal accountability, and they're very accurate barometers of how we treat ourselves. So if this is the time in your cycle where you tend to want to break up, we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but I want you to think of it as you're naturally going to want to be a little withdrawn. And if you were super into your partner during ovulation and then you wake up and the next day you hate them, that's not because you're in the wrong relationship. That's because it is now time to withdraw from the external into the internal. And if you're still holding yourself to the same standards in the second half of your phase as you were in the first half of your phase, you're going to suffer. Remember, you are 4 different women throughout your cycle, and you have different needs during each phase of your cycle. Your third phase, your luteal phase, you are going to want to be a bit more introverted. That is biology, and it is by design. So if you're still trying to do a lot of interacting and going on date nights, just like you were in ovulation phase, you're going to feel cranky because you're going to be wanting to be a little bit more withdrawn. Okay. And the last phase, a menstrual phase, is connected to the inner winter. And this should ideally be a time of hibernation and doing nothing. So ideally in the luteal phase, you've done a lot of harvesting and you've used all that energy, that chaotic energy, to clean your space, clean your house, harvest, cook a lot of nurturing food, prepare for death, prepare for winter, and then go into hibernation and rest. And this is not the time to start planning what you're going to do in the next cycle. This is just a time of emptiness and spaciousness. And if you're doing a bunch of stuff during this time, you're going to be really irritable and feel like crap. And dare I say, you might actually be in a lot of pain, like I was. My endometriosis symptoms started to subside when I stopped working on my periods. There was actually a coach I worked with, and she did not take any clients on the first 2 days of her cycle. And I used to think, I can never do that because I have commitments and I just can't cancel. So I guess I'll just tough it out. No, what I actually did in my business is I let my clients know in advance, hey, if we have a session scheduled and my period starts, I'm going to reschedule. And I even extend that same grace to my women clients. I say, if you start your period and you don't want to work together that day, that's fine. And I've structured my business in such a way where I don't rely on my clients needing to show up for every single session. I know if you're a therapist or something and you have to have 8 sessions a day and you have a wait list or something, then people need to show up and you need a wait list and you need a cancellation policy. But for me, that doesn't honor my natural rhythm. I need to be able to cancel when I'm on my period or I'm not feeling well. Otherwise, I don't do my best work. And to be honest, I've created a business that gives my clients that same grace as well. And it's just been such a blessing, and it's created so much ease. I'm very lax with my cancellation policy. I used to charge late cancellation fees. I don't do that anymore. And it feels wonderful. It feels wonderful to honor the human. I don't judge people that have different structures, but for me, this has been wonderful for my menstrual cycle. I wanted to take a little detour and talk about something that I read about in that book I mentioned, Ritu Vidya by Sinu Joseph. She was talking about the menarche, the very first period that you have. Some women start really early on, like at age 9. I had mine at age 12. Some women don't get it until as late as, 15 or 16. I don't think there's a right or wrong. Women have their first periods at many different ages. But in ancient India, it was a sacred celebration and a rite of passage when a woman got her menses. And today, many women see their periods as an inconvenience because they're operating out of a capitalistic, patriarchal 24/7 paradigm instead of honoring their natural, cyclical natures. And that, in part, is what makes them feel like something is off inside. They had this momentous event that signals your passage into womanhood. And I don't know about you, but on my first day of my period, my dad took me bowling. And this is not a criticism of my parents. It's not like they had sacred rites of passage and rituals either. But my period didn't feel all that special. I was just handed a pad and say, here you go. And good luck. If you have pain, take some Advil. There was nothing magical or sacred about it. And I wish it had been. What I would love to do if I have a daughter someday is to make her period really special, to bring her roses and surround her with flowers on her first period. I'd love to say congratulations. I'd love to make sure she's got a bunch of really nurturing, warm food around her, a heating pad if she needs it, to teach her some moves that she can do to create more ease and flow in the body. And I would probably also just leave her alone and recommend that she journal and just be still and really rest, really rest, and make it a very sacred experience for her the first couple days so that she can exit from the womb of her space, reborn, and step into her second follicular phase, but she wouldn't know about her first follicular phase. Anyway, a lot of women, what they're feeling is off because they're disconnected from their feminine natures. But sometimes we feel this off feeling or a sensation of stickiness or stuckness. And we try to find meaning around it, and we look around and we see our partners, and they're just a convenient scapegoat for us feeling off, when in reality, our lives just might not be being treated with the level of sacredness and reverence and mindfulness that we would really desire. And I think when we're going into our luteal phase, we're getting ready to die. And it's a really potentially sacred time of loss and grief and anger and any unprocessed emotions that deserve to be seen and revered by first and foremost ourselves. And if we're not doing that, then our partners certainly aren't doing that. And we're going to take that frustration out on them when it's really misdirected. So my suggestion to you is you start seeing your cycles as this sacred code that's been programmed into you, and to utilize it to create massive snowballs of change in your life. You can think about the things you want to accomplish in the next year, and you can think about, okay, that's 12 cycles. What am I going to do in those 12 cycles? I talked about this on Instagram, and I received this comment. I am not a religious expert, but one of my Jewish followers messaged me back after talking about taking some space from your partner when you're on your bleed, maybe like sleeping in a separate room or isolating in some way for a couple of days, which is something that was talked about, by the way, in Ritu Vidya. My follower wrote, and I remember this message, I had to go look it up. She wrote, Orthodox Judaism has a mitzvah called nida, which is one of the main focuses like Shabbat and kosher, and only applies to married couples who are straight. When the woman has her period, the couple fully separates, including beds, and don't touch for the time she's on her period, which is 7 or plus days, generally 12 in total. That's 12 days per month, you guys. And then she cleans herself top to bottom and bathes in a ritual bath called mikveh, and then the couple can be together again and touch. Like some couples don't even pass anything to each other directly, which, by the way, in Ritu Vidya was also talked about, how you not only do you not touch, but you also don't pass physical objects between each other. And there was actually a really scientific reason about electron transfer and electronic charge change that happens during the menstrual cycle, and it blew my mind. Anyway, so just to continue, this creates major polarity between the sexual and emotional aspects of the relationship, because for half of the month you are being sexually connected because you know you're going to separate for the other half. And during that part, you are super emotionally connected because you can't touch. So you can't just kiss and make up. You got to actually work on your shit. It sounds crazy, but it's actually so interesting and creates so much desire. I love this and I was so grateful. It sounds like a lot of the ancient traditions encourage taking space from your partner during the second half of your cycle to honor the natural introvertedness of woman during the second half. And today we don't do that. We expect women to be consistent and feel the same way day after day, week after week, month after month, not realizing that this is not how she was biologically encoded. And it's causing a lot of suffering. It's causing a lot of women to unnecessarily question their relationships rather than just following a rhythmic way of honoring her body and the relationship by knowing when she's most primed to be open to her partner and when she's most primed to go within. I think also when we have these unrealistic ideas of how we should feel in love, we assume that we should feel the same way towards our partners all month long, when that's not true. Your priorities are going to shift. Sometimes you're going to be more social. Other times you're going to be more introverted. I don't like being labeled as an introvert or an extrovert. I'm like, where depends on where I am in my cycle. If you ask me during my follicular phase or my ovulation phase, I am an extrovert. If you ask me during my menstrual phase, I am an introvert. This also goes for life transitions like pregnancy. I found that in my first trimester, I was heavily introverted. In fact, I completely withdrew from my business and social media because I just had no energy and had to focus on myself. The second phase for me, the second trimester, I am on top of the world and want to interact with everyone. I feel amazing. No idea how third trimester is going to go and beyond, but I'm just sharing. I think we just go through yin and yang changes constantly. So maybe there isn't something wrong with you or your relationship. Maybe your body is setting a natural boundary where you aren't giving yourself permission to. Many men and women today have still not accepted that they are biologically different, physically, hormonally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and they're wired differently. And it's resulted in burnt out, martyred women and entitled and uninspired men. Because truly, women who are tapped into their cyclical natures, they are a force to behold. So my suggestion, if you're the kind of person or if you're a woman who tends to start shit right before your cycle, my suggestion is that you plan ahead. If you know that you tend to lash out towards your partner, it means that you feel a lot during the second half of your cycle. And that's a time to isolate and channel it into rage scribbling, which is something I learned from Ali Duzet, movement, dance, punching a pillow, doing some kind of somatic practice, shaking, listening to music, crying, getting your disgust and your shame out. I share a lot of practices in my self-study course, Both Feet In, that can help you a lot with processing emotions, especially the ones that come up during our luteal phase very naturally. If you can, prep food in advance or have someone prep food for you. And I even might suggest that you, towards the second half of your cycle, maybe even, I started doing this just on my period, although I haven't had a period in several months now, but when I was really after I read Ritu Vidya, I asked my partner if we could sleep in separate rooms while I was on my period. And I actually just stayed in my room for 2 days and cooked everything in advance so I could just go to the fridge, grab some food, go back to my room, and just be a bear in hibernation for a few days. And boy, it was the space was so needed. I didn't have to act a certain way in front of my partner. I didn't have to pretend to feel better than I actually did around him. I didn't have to act positive or be pleasant. I could just be a curmudgeon in the safe space of my bedroom for a few days. And eventually I got tired of that. And that was right around when the follicular phase would start. And I'd climb out of my cave and be much more pleasant and bright-eyed. And it was just a wonderful thing for our relationship for me to take some space for a few days. So if you have that luxury and you've got like an extra bedroom, I recommend it. And if you don't live together, maybe don't get together when you're on your period. Isolate. Maybe you don't talk on the phone during that time. You just spend 2-3 days just being in your own space. So use this time for self-care. Now, I want to speak to men for a moment who are in relationships with women. During the luteal phase and the menstrual phase, this is a good time to kind of give your partner some space. When I say that, I mean offer her some distance. You know, you can be available to support, but she mainly just needs to know that you're there, but that you're not interfering with her process. So if you live together, do your best to make sure her outer surroundings are taken care of. This is a very yin time. So she's, like I said, she's more withdrawn. She's going through her dark night of the soul. She's kind of going to die. So, imagine she's dying. Eliminate any decision-making that she has to do, because it's a lot of work shedding your uterine lining. And being in a female body during the luteal phase is it's a lot. You're bloated, you're breaking out. You've got these, maybe if you have any hormonal issues, you might have like some cystic acne that's really painful. Your boobs are swollen, you're bloated, and you're farting. It's just existing in the female body during the luteal phase can be a lot. And so she's naturally primed to be feeling a lot, which means ideally she doesn't have to be in her head. So hopefully, if you can, try to minimize any decision-making that she has to do. Decision-making is the last thing you want to do when you're on your period or in your luteal phase. You want someone else to take care of the big decisions. So get her takeout, make sure that there's food for her when she gets hungry. Make life as easy as possible so that she can just turn into a big blob and die. Give her plenty of space. Don't take anything personally. Ideally, if you avoid her, in a sense, you won't have anything to take personally because she'll just be far away from you. Know that, of course, she is capable of doing everything. She's capable of cooking herself. She's capable of setting up her space. She's capable of cleaning. She's capable of making decisions. But this is not how she's going to thrive and enjoy her luteal phase, which is a time that could be really beautiful if she was given the space to be in her body, which, if she has a partner, can make that really possible for her. It's really wonderful. Bonus points if you bring her fresh flowers during this time to decorate her space. And that's it. I talked a little bit about Ritu Vidya. It's a really gorgeous book. I highly recommend it. If this episode inspired you and you want to have better cycles and a more inspiring life that's centered around your cycles, highly recommend it. Check it out in my Amazon link. And that's it for that topic today. I'd love to talk a little bit about Both Feet In, because I have a group program starting on October 1st for women. And so I'm just going to spend maybe the next 10 minutes talking about that. If you're done, if you're good, you want to head out, peace. But you may have heard me talking about Both Feet In, my self-study course, over the last month. And it's been crazy. We've had about 20 people sign up just in the last week since the last podcast, since I started talking about it and being more active on Instagram. And it's really exciting. We have over 250 people enrolled in Both Feet In if we combine the old course and the new course. And there's just more coming. There's a lot of people joining the self-study course. Both Feet In self-study is open to anyone, and it covers a lot of tools and perspectives and a new way to look at relationships and mindfulness. And a lot of what I share in there is stuff that was taught to me from my teacher, Steffi Price, who I'm actually currently visiting. And in Both Feet In, there are 3 main life-changing practices. At least they were life-changing for me and have been life-changing for a lot of my clients. These practices are called consciousness exercise, polarity work, and change history work, which is basically inner child work. And they can be done alone in the sense that I have recorded guided meditations for you to do. But these practices really shine when you do them with a buddy or a partner. I don't mean your romantic partner. I would actually prefer your partner does not know about the inner work that you're doing, because then it's that much more satisfying when they respond to your shifts that you make. But I recommend you have a buddy. And if you just want to go the totally self-study route and you want a partner to be sent to you, we have like a little list going. You can email my support team and they will send you like a few people, but then you're going to have to figure out how to do it on your own. You might make mistakes. It might not be the most satisfying experience, but you can figure it out. There's enough information in Both Feet In to do these practices partnered without my guidance. However, if you would like my guidance and to really strengthen these 3 practices, which can completely change your life, then I highly recommend you join the class series that I have created just for Both Feet In students. And the next one we have is starting on October 1st, and it's for women only. Both Feet In's open to everybody. Unfortunately, these practices are so intimate and so vulnerable. I only feel comfortable partnering women to women, and I don't have enough men interested to create a men's group. That's just the way it is. I'm so sorry. But you can email the support team if you're a man and you're in Both Feet In, and we'll keep an eye open for other men joining. Maybe we can still set you up with another female partner if they feel comfortable. But for now, it's a mostly women program, and the group program is for women only. So if you want to take your study to the next level and get a lot of guidance from me, and also we're going to be assigning groups of 5 little pods based on people's time zones, so that outside of session and after the program is over, you have a group of people who potentially for the rest of your life, you could practice these exercises with. I actually do consciousness exercise very frequently with a friend of mine who also studied with me and under Steffi. We just help each other process our emotions because life happens and we feel a certain way about the things that happen. And if we don't process them or create spaces to process them and be seen and be held, we get emotionally constipated and then we take it out on our partners. So I'm a huge fan of consciousness exercise in particular because it teaches you 2 things. 1, how to feel and process the emotions that you are currently constipated by, which is probably affecting how you're viewing the lens you're looking at your relationship through. I would say consciousness exercise alone dissipated a lot of my relationship anxiety, because my relationship anxiety was actually a lot of grief and anger and disgust and disguise from the past that had nothing to do with my partner that I had to clear out. Like I had to emotionally vomit all that stuff out before I could see my husband with clear eyes. And consciousness exercise really does a good job at that. The second thing that I really love about consciousness exercise is that you get really emotionally literate. You get good at articulating your emotions. You get good at articulating your sensations, and you get really good at identifying thoughts as thoughts without getting really wrapped into them. Consciousness exercise does so much in just a tiny, relatively simple exercise, but it is partnered. It's best done partnered. I have a solo variation of it, like a guided meditation in the self-study course if you just want to solo it, and it can get you far, but it's so yummy when it's done with a partner. So unfortunately, I don't often have retreats where you can just immerse yourself in person. So in the meantime, we've just got these online groups. Now, my recommendation is if you're just getting Both Feet In now, take a full year to get through it. And I'm going to be hosting different classes for Both Feet In students throughout the year so that you can solidify each practice. Consciousness exercise series is going to be starting on October 1st. It caps at 50 women. And it will be 6 2-hour sessions over 2 months. So there will be plenty of time for you to show up, ask questions, practice, and then practice on your own inside your 5-person pod in your time zone. Hopefully with a pod of 5, you'll always have someone to practice with at least once a week. And my hope is that over the next 2 months, starting in October, you will have processed a lot of your sticky emotions. You will feel so much lighter and you won't be carrying around so much emotional baggage and constipation. This has been my experience and the experience of many clients of mine who really dove into consciousness exercise and took it seriously. So if you're not in Both Feet In, then you need to purchase Both Feet In and the series. They are two separate products. If you already have Both Feet In, either the old one or the new one, which by the way, if you were in the old Both Feet In years ago, a few months ago, you were secretly gifted Both Feet In, the new, more concise version. You're welcome. So you have the more concise one. And if you have the course and you never got through it, this is the time to do it because the course is much shorter. It's less fluffy. There's no long 2-hour lectures. There's a lot of audio lessons that you can do while you're driving or while you're taking a walk. I designed it so that you can get through it. I cut out anything I felt was not necessary. So this is your time, and consciousness exercise corresponds to module 3. And we're going to be spending 2 months just on module 3, and you can get a lot out of it. So that's that. If you're interested, I'm going to include both links in my show notes, both the link to the self-study course. And for those of you that want to get both, you can get both. If you're already in Both Feet In, then you can just add on the consciousness exercise series starting on October 1st. I wanted to share one of my wonderful Both Feet In alumni left a really long testimonial, just is glowing. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I wanted to just share a couple of paragraphs of her experience. Her name was Elena. She says, "I'm speechless. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm so grateful for you creating this program and teaching us how to finally get to know ourselves and our emotions. I never knew how to deal with any of them, which was also the reason I was super scared of big emotions. I would shut down, having anxiety attacks, and not knowing what to do with all this. I felt completely helpless and left alone. After only a few months of working with you, this completely shifted. I can now confidently say that I am no longer scared of anything inside of me. I not only learn to identify different emotions, but can also see them and accept them in their full capacity. I meet any sensation or emotion with pure curiosity and love. Consciousness exercise is now my best friend. I cannot go a week without feeling into my body and recognizing my emotions. Not only am I no longer scared of what's inside of me, I genuinely crave feeling everything. I now recognize the tightness in my chest, the unwell feeling in my belly, and the heaviness in my shoulders. They aren't enemies anymore. They are here to guide me deeper. Originally, I entered this course with the intention to learn more about healthy romantic relationships. I am now coming out with a completely new relationship with myself and feeling more secure in myself than ever. I got the tools I can and most definitely will work with, and a new level of consciousness accompanying me for the rest of my life. Words cannot describe the level of gratitude that I'm feeling. Both Feet In is the 101 how-to life guide everyone should be taught. And that's from Elena, one of our Both Feet In graduates. So if you want to read the full testimonial, I skipped some parts. It's on the Both Feet In page. But I hope you join. Again, we'll start October 1st. If you have any questions at all about the program that makes sense, there's an FAQ section on the Both Feet In page, but you can also shoot me a message or a DM on Instagram and I'll let you know. And without that, I'm going to let you go so that you can have a good rest of your day, afternoon, or night. Thank you so much for listening. If you are a patron or you want to be a patron, I do a monthly community call every month. And this upcoming is going to be September 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So these monthly calls, we do a practice, something that you would probably find in Both Feet In. We do a discussion, and then we open up for some Q&A. So if that's something you might want to be interested in, it's $5 to $9 a month, and you can get support. So this way I try to serve people at all levels. Anyway, just wanted to let you know. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day or week. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening to The Anxious Love Coach today. If you loved this episode, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And maybe share it with someone that you believe might benefit from these perspectives. Please also subscribe to my email list at www.anxiouslovecoach.com, as I'm trying to reduce my reliance on social media. In exchange, you will receive my free relationship anxiety meditation and more supportive tools sent your way. If you would like to work with me, head on over to my website at, again, anxiouslovecoach.com to explore different tiers of coaching options and online programs. Thanks again for listening, and catch you in the next episode. Have a blessed day.